All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Run with the Wind, episode 9.
Well,
all right. Last episode we had
confrontation.
Confrontation, yes.
Yeah.
We had a really good moment with Kakeru and Haiji, especially, where Haiji's calling out Kakeru on a lot of the issues that he's not addressing here, the ones that are tripping up the opportunity that he has to be a huge positive influence on the group as a whole. And his resulting idea of, oh, here's the first thing I can do, he goes to Prince and says that, hey, maybe you should quit for the sake of the team.
Yeah.
And here we go. That's
oh boy.
Yeah, that's gonna be a I can't wait to see how Haiji responds.
Right.
But I also can't wait to see how the group in general responds, because there might be some really cool stuff within their old kind of unique perspectives on the idea of running and stuff like that. Because King, up until recently, was thinking that he would quit not for the group's sake, but just for his own sake. And this is, an inversion of that. So
right, for good or bad, those words can't be taken back, and everything is probably going to be different from here on out.
Yeah.
Maybe it could end up, doing some good, but we'll have to see.
So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Yeah, that was a really good episode.
That was fantastic. I loved it. I loved how it was handled, and like the conflict from the previous episode being resolved and everything. And we got a new conflict. Yeah. Several new, but one in particular.
Several new ones here. I think the biggest thing to briefly bring up with this idea of Haiji being physically unwell in some way is that there have been people who know Haiji, who have made little comments over the course of the show thus far, that have noted how important it is that Haiji is doing this. Now, I'm not going to jump to any conclusions right here, although there are a few that are pretty easy to jump to here. One, he is really not unwell. Like, he is really not well.
Like,
in a really bad way. Two, second way, is that he is putting himself through the ringer to make this work. He is putting way too much of his physical and mental energy into this, to where he is not getting enough rest.
Right, and what I'm hoping is that this is the call to action for Kakeru and for some of the others too. That they really need to step up their game in areas beyond just running. Right?
Support,
leadership, right, exactly.
Organization,
because
passion, all of that.
In any other anime, if this were to happen and, there was, say, a romance subplot and, Haiji was the cute girl of the show, I'd be like, well, I'd give him about a 97% chance of dying in this show, Yeah,
thankfully,
I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think that's going to happen.
But, especially since the thing that we know that was wrong with Haiji is an injury, that doesn't seem like something that should be life-threatening, but it definitely is the kind of thing where if he's pushing his body to extreme lengths, not just with the, helping everybody and whatnot, but with running, right? Like, I could definitely see that being something that exacerbates the toll that it takes on him, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So this is where he needs that support. And yeah,
and the one thing I think that's a clue that this is something that is not a overwhelmingly scary deal here is that he didn't run at the track meet. I think there's a couple little meanings you can get from that. One, he's intentionally trying to show Kakeru how to support the other players by leading by example.
Yeah.
But there's also a very real possibility that he was either in a lot of pain that day, like his injury was flaring up. They showed us how bad it got with his injury by showing him stumbling through the therapy, the recovery, the physical therapy he had to go through.
Right, and then also when he had the watch and his vision blurred out for a second. Yeah.
When you have something that caused you extreme amounts of pain, one of the things that is common is that because your pain threshold broke, basically, you end up accepting a lower your pain tolerance went up. So you could be in a constant amount of pain, but that's still physically and mentally taxing.
Sure.
So if he had a moment where he basically had the pain flare up instead of it being like a, ow, it's a, oh, my body just shut down for a second. To be like, you need to recover, rest a little bit.
Yeah, because
signals are being sent to your brain that you should take it easy. Buddy.
Right. In fact, the fact that he made the time earlier, like when with Kakeru, right?
Right.
That's fantastic, because that means he won't have to be pushing himself as crazy necessarily at these future track meets, because he made his time. He still does need to train though.
All actually.
Well, he still does need to train because again, he has the time, which means that he has done his part as far as going into the qualifier for the
and for the qualifier.
But if they want to actually go through the qualifier
to be able to win the race there, they shows they're one of the top teams. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but that also is a double-edged sword, because that means there's a very good possibility that he pushed himself way harder than he should have back then.
Possibly,
right? Because I could see it being something where, yes, he got back to the point where he can kind of run and whatnot, but really, he probably should have waited longer. But the thing is that because he's being the leader, he's not going to make these people that don't want to be here in the first place, like, originally at least, run if he's not going to, right? So of course he's going to do that, right?
And it was important that they all run in that meet, even though we knew Prince was going to get, double the required length of time to actually be able to do that.
Exactly. That way they know what it's like to do them.
Yep. It was the experience. And
And now they know what it's like to support and the effect that has, because they've run without it, and half of them now have run with it, right?
Yes.
So
now,
awesome.
In some ways, the ones that didn't run are going to get some of the best support ever in the next one.
Yeah.
Because all the people that felt the support know how valuable it is.
Yep.
Even more than the people that actually did it.
And then they can see maybe what their best times truly are. And I would not be surprised, because Kakeru was looking at his own times.
Yeah, let's bring that up. Yeah.
And he was looking at them, and he was like, he was discouraged. He was a bit peeved at himself,
He was tapering off. It was the idea that when he looked at his time, it was something that was starting to wane.
Yeah, in fact,
increasing his time.
Yeah, right. Exactly. His last time was worse than the previous, right? So it's like, oh man. And,
now, to be fair,
that
this
is
did
over
happen
the course once before.
Right, but look at this. This is 5 seconds. So these are times that are extremely consistent as far as things go.
Yep.
But what you can even see here as a pattern is that he goes down for a couple, then he moves up a bit, then he goes down for a few more, then he goes up. So this is just a cycle of showing that overall progress is great, but he's still dealing in seconds.
Right. And that's like in small amounts of seconds, right?
Yeah.
And yes, he is running at a very good speed,
Yep.
But at the same time, I'm curious what it'll be like once he runs, and that'll be granted with another month or whatever, the amount of time is that they have for this for the next track meet. But then with people cheering him on, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Okay, this episode also had a medley of little things that happened, but before we get into those, let's talk about the stuff that was the carryover from the previous episode.
So Nico-chan eating and all that stuff, and
right, but the stuff with Kakeru.
Oh, right.
Kakeru, Haiji basically kind of did a little bit of a post kind of thing with that with the JoJo twins who overheard, I guess, that stuff.
Right.
And with Prince being like, what he said wasn't helpful.
Yeah, so I stayed up all night reading just because it made me feel that bad.
Right. Yep. So, you guys, don't talk to anyone about this.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. It's going to be okay. We're gonna be doing fine. Of course, the JoJo twins go and tell everybody. These bakas.
Yep.
But what I really like about this was that when the confrontation with Kakeru happened, it was at the track meet while they were, getting set up for everyone else to run. Haiji kind of took a little bit of I would say a little bit of a genius level move out of the art of war with running and stuff like that. And he's just like, and you're benched. In fact, all of you that were involved in the potential misgivings about your efforts and stuff like that, you're all benched. King as well. Nico-chan. Prince. Myself. And Kakeru. All 5 of us are going to be focused on supporting here.
Right, which is, I love it.
I think Haiji thinks way more about these little details and stuff than we even give him credit for.
Oh, totally. I 100% agree. Because, I mean, it makes sense. This is his dream, right? So he is going to be obsessing over this.
Yep.
Prince, when he's having a bad day, stays up all night reading. I'm sure that Haiji, when he has a bad day, he stays up all night just thinking, okay, what are the ways that I can make it so that our chances of getting into the Ekiden are better?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. To the point where he's been managing their nutrition ever since they've been here.
Right.
And
In the
Nico-chan,
hopes that eventually they'd have 10 people and...
Right,
you know,
right. And that's Nico-chan, who's been here the longest, 4 years ago. Meaning that over the course of all this time as they've come in, that's just been the norm.
And he might not have been giving them like the leanest meats and things like that. Like he definitely started giving them like the good fish and whatnot.
Totally.
Once this was happening.
But he was making sure their macros were being taken care of, and they didn't even have to think about it.
Right.
So the idea then that Nico-chan's like, oh, I need to eat less. He's like, no. I've already managed your nutrition behind your back for years now. And he's like, wait, really? Like, I just gotta say, as someone who has that little bit of athlete's blood of just like, oh, I love that competition, that running and all that. If someone was managing my nutrition in a sneaky way like that, without even me knowing,
that's a confession of love.
That's a confession of love right there. That's just like, oh shit, man, like, I'm so grateful. Like, I didn't even notice it. Like, I would probably have noticed it eventually over the course of 4 years. But the fact that Nico-chan didn't because it was so not on his radar of something that he cared about. Like, that's so good.
Even with nutrition in general, most of the time that people have problems with their health, I'm speaking from having experience with both sides of the coin. It's all because of the nutrition, right? Yeah. It's not actually really because of the activity. Like that helps, but it's all the nutrition. And most of the time when people don't, put good stuff in their body, it's because of, habit, stress, the time required to make sure that it's all properly managed and whatnot.
Yeah. Like cost, family.
So the fact that Haiji is just taking care of that for all of them and has been for the whole time he's been here, that's huge.
That's so huge.
That's huge. So.
Like, that alone makes me understand why he might be, like, exhausted.
Yeah. And that's also something where, because he is totally, officially the mom of this group,
100%.
Right? 100%. But
He's like Sugawara and Griffith in one package.
That is quite the combo.
It is, though. That is who he is, basically.
And because of that, that's the other reason why... If this was a romance anime and he was the cute girl, I would be super worried because he's in the too wholesome and wonderful for this world category right now. Like
terrifyingly so.
Terrifyingly so. So but nothing has been set up that it should be anything of that regard serious, but yeah.
If anything, I'll bet you that at least one of the other people in the house knows what happened. Like, knows immediately. They're like, oh, probably. It's been a year since this happened.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if Nico-chan was like, oh, shit, he really must have been pushing himself. Okay.
Yeah. Here would be something that I would love as like such an innocuous little thing that would just be really cool to just have happen. Remember how he was obsessing over the serving sizes and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah.
What if they're just low on money and he's making sure that they all get the right amount of food?
No, they better not do something where the parent is like starving themselves for the children.
No, not starving themselves.
Okay.
But they're not getting the proper nutrients, meaning they're getting like rice and, a couple other things. But it's the activity level to the intake of calories and also specific, macros and stuff like that. They're just not getting enough. And he's got like a deficiency in some kind of mineral or something like that because...
Let's hope it's just a simple nutrition problem. That would be wonderful.
I really think it could be something as simple as that, but it's something that might have been, recurring or something where everyone goes like, oh, well, buddy, oh, you were trying to...
Because when you see the wholesome character like randomly like cough when they're alone, it's like, hold on.
Yeah, you're not allowed.
Like,
You've lost beings to the server and the service one.
Right.
You've lost rights of being the service one.
Exactly, yes.
Sit down, sleep. We're going to take care of you now. And,
Right.
and this is the way that a family can come together.
Exactly.
And then we can find out who's the second in command here. Is it going to be Nico? Is it going to be Yuki? Maybe Shindo?
Maybe Prince will read. He'll be like,
Kakeru?
sure, yeah. I mean, Kakeru's, certainly as far as the running aspect goes. Okay, let's put aside everything else like the meal prep and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
Like, because that theoretically anybody could do, right?
Theoretically, yeah.
Theoretically, right? But the running, yeah, that'll have to be Kakeru. And given the fact that he's had this experience, this perspective of seeing how hard they're all trying, hopefully he'll be up to the task for that.
Yep.
Because, his technical knowledge of it aside, he needs to be able to address each of them as individuals, their own strengths and weaknesses and where they're at. But yeah, I hope that this is something where then Haiji is like, all right, you stay in bed, Prince will read comics to you or whatever, I don't know, and then you just stay there and get better, and we'll take care of everything from here,
Yep.
But I don't know, that was, oh boy.
Yeah.
Because that's one hell of a cliffhanger. Right? Because it's not the kind of thing that you expect, right? If you have some kind of cliffhanger where like he's walking around and then he like stumbles and falls because of his injury, that it's like, okay, that would still achieve a similar result. It'd be scary, but it's more directly tied to the injury, right? He doesn't lose consciousness. He doesn't pass out, right?
Yeah.
This worries me. This worries me because I don't know why it's happening exactly.
So I have my third thing that I never got to bring up here, which is the other prediction that I think makes a lot of sense. We need to know how his injury happened. And this would be a great way to maybe have something that is a problem with him that caused his injury.
Not just simple, like, overexertion of that specific area of his body.
So one of the things that I was thinking of particularly is that when you're an athlete, there are certain things that you'll bump into that are physical limitations. And all about being an athlete is expanding your limitations.
Right.
Growing past them. Now, in order to do that, you have to break yourself in little pieces and reassemble over and over and over and over and over and over again.
And you got to be very careful and respectful with how you
have to
do
be
that.
very careful. Exactly. You have to know your body and be careful with it and listen to it. And I could very much see Haiji at one point being Kakeru. Someone who all they cared about was speed. They were going at it. They were going at it. And at one point, their body hit a limit of some kind that they didn't respect and thus got injured for it.
Right,
So,
like some Icarus flew too close to the sun, got smacked down to earth kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kakeru, I think, is basically meant to be in this story, in this iteration of where things might go, because he is basically a potential look at a younger version of himself for Haiji.
Yeah,
and Haiji looks at Kakeru and goes, oh, I
was you.
I know where you're at now, dude. Like, you're actually, it's perfect that you're here with me because I can impart to you the things that I wish I could have told myself 4 or 5 years ago. But the reason why it's being brought up as a problem right now is that this is something that is a smart kind of way in the story to have Haiji explain to them a little bit about his past, because for the most part, Haiji has no reason in the story to just suddenly start talking about his past.
Right, unless it starts causing trouble. And given the fact that he's the second main character of this story, it does make a lot of sense that now that Kakeru has started resolving his conflict.
He hit a bottom and now he's bouncing back up a little bit.
Right. He's started the process of learning and understanding that, okay, there's more to running than just what I've known, right?
Yep.
Given that, now it makes sense to sort of shift focus a little bit towards Haiji while maintaining the general progression of all the side characters over the course of the story, right?
Right.
And yeah, so having it happen here, this makes a lot of sense because you definitely, like, having it wait until, like, the last, like, 4 episodes of the show before it actually, like, comes up, that would, like, that'd be kind of like, okay,
cliche.
No. That'd be cliche. It'd feel mean, right? Because it's like, come on, why hasn't this come up before?
It would feel lazy. And so that's why I feel like this being brought up here, whatever it is important, because Haiji as a character is one that in some ways moves too fast. Like think about it. When he was chasing after Nico-chan with the lunch, and it was this comedic, wholesome scene. And
Yeah.
he's like, I don't, a grown-ass man taking another people to another grown-ass man. He's like, my presentation is perfect. And
Right,
we like
right.
not knowing in our heads yet about the joke of he's going to show thing there.
That was fantastic.
Hilarious.
And it's also something that just, again, goes to show that, like, he is putting so much into this.
Yeah, he doesn't need to chase him.
Yeah, he doesn't need to chase him. And he certainly doesn't need to have that presentation on the food.
Nope.
But it's because it's not just about the food, right? He wants to specifically address the concern within Nico and be like, "Hey, no. You're good. I got you,
I got
boo.
you, yeah.
I got you, boo.
Yeah.
You're like just keep doing what you're doing. It's fine. You don't need to worry about, if you're eating too much or whatever, if you need to cut a ton in order to be able to, have the stamina or something like that. You're going to be fine, right?
I'll just say, guys, Haiji as a character right now, with what little we have of him, is the type of friend that I would grab hold of and never let go. Like,
yeah. Well, you would hope so, right?
Because, no. I know.
No, totally, absolutely, right?
Like, you guys don't realize, as someone who is in Kakeru's position, like if we kind of try and put ourselves into Kakeru's position a little bit, he has no idea how big of a deal Haiji is.
Exactly.
Just in general.
Yep.
So this will be a good moment for him to also then take a little bit of focus off himself.
Yep.
Look at Haiji and realize when Haiji goes out of whack, how much does that desynchronize
everything?
The Chikoseiso.
Right.
The house, basically.
Yeah, right.
But
yeah. We have it written down in here somewhere.
Yeah, we do. But anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, it's because it's one of those things where Kakeru, he's the young cocky person, right? And it makes sense because his skills are Chikuseiso. Okay, yeah. Because his skills are incredible, right? But there is more to life than running, and there's more to running than running. And now he's starting to realize that. And now that you start to realize that, the one who you weren't appreciating just how much they were making this work, because he was looking at it and being like, "There's no way we'll be able to run in the Ekiden."
Yep.
If somehow they did, why would that be the case? Because of Haiji, right? And now he's collapsed, right?
Yeah.
And I can only imagine how much, like, say if it's just from like overwork and things like that.
Yeah.
How much each of them are going to be like, "Oh my God, he was doing this for us."
Yeah, they're going to see his notes and his general stuff and then be like, wait, what's not in his notes? What's in his head,
Right.
But let's finish up the whole thing with Kakeru and Prince and stuff here.
I loved how it was handled.
So Prince addresses Kakeru first here. And I think that's kind of important here because in some ways we don't know what's going on in Prince's head.
Yeah, he doesn't open up too much. Yeah.
He says what he does, and we see what he does, but we don't really get too much head thoughts with him there.
Right.
And it was important that we got inside Kakeru's head by having this moment here, and other people kind of give a little bit of feedback of that, of like, so you finally said what you were thinking.
Right.
But Prince saying, "I don't think I've narrowly escaped,"
Yeah.
I think is a really cool way of Prince being like, saying, "I know what you're thinking." And let's be real, that is something that Kakeru probably thought about over the course of him finding out that Prince and him weren't running, and then this moment right here.
Oh, definitely.
At least once.
Yep.
And I would say that in some ways, Haiji was thinking about that, though. Like, maybe a little bit. But then what Prince says afterwards, I think, is wonderful. He's saying, "I don't think I've narrowly escaped." Kakeru's like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "If anything, you could say I've got no way out now."
Yeah.
And this is something that is really important for Prince to communicate here, because he's scared. He's not confident in himself and his abilities to be able to do this. He's a smart kid who looks at this and goes, if you run the numbers, no, I don't think at this rate I could place into the Hakone Ekiden.
Right.
Better yet, then once placing within the official time thing, actually win as a team in the qualifiers. Like, that's...
Yeah, he knows how bad he is at this compared to the rest of them.
Yes.
Like, he knows how far he has to go, right? He's thinking of it. In fact, that is one of those things where where I feel like from Kakeru's perspective, because he's thinking about whether or not they can actually do the Ekiden, it totally makes sense that Prince would be the biggest problem, right?
Oh, he's 100% the biggest problem.
100% the biggest problem. No question about it, right?
No question. Yeah.
But if you think about the whole idea of the half-assed running, right? Motivationally, Prince is the biggest conundrum, or the biggest. It's the one that makes the least sense.
Ah, sure. Okay.
Because for the rest of them, okay, they might try less hard because they're really close, you know. So okay, they can get to the point where they make that time,
right?
Because the mountain might not seem quite as crazy, right? The Ekiden doesn't seem as impossible for them. With Prince, you could say that he might be slacking off because he sees it as impossible, but the idea that he's sticking along with this, he is going through the motions of attempting the impossible, right? So if anything, I could and maybe this is just because I'm not a runner and I'm not in Kakeru's position, but that's why I love Prince so much, right?
Well,
because
that's why we love him. Yeah, because outside of context in the story, yes,
right? Yeah,
he is the most important spirit of this show, character, because he's the underdog. But in a technical perspective, there is no reasonable way he could actually, given his current output and input he's getting from nutrition and all that other stuff, that he could actually place.
Right.
It's currently outside of probability.
Yeah, they could do projections of okay, with the amount that his times are going down, even if he maintained that pace, which wouldn't happen, right? Will he actually be able to get to the point within the allotted period of time so that he'll be able to actually have a qualifying time?
Yeah, in some ways, part of what Haiji has done is basically set Prince up to where he's building the habit. Once Prince falls in love with running, though, that's where the magic's going to happen. Right now, Prince is saying that up until this point, he was thinking of ways out. Before Kakeru said anything. Because Kakeru was just saying what he was already thinking, which meant that anyone else who was looking at the numbers would look at that and think that for a brief bit too.
Sure.
But whether or not Prince has been thinking that in an oppressive way himself, we now basically just got confirmation that he's like, well, now I have to be all in. And that's heavy. That's a burden that he's now going to have to figure out, how do I want to carry this?
Yep. Because
what kind of new effort am I going to put into this here?
Right. Because with the amount of pain that he basically has to put himself through in order to actually do the running, right? It's crazy, right? And pain with a purpose, that totally makes sense. Pain without a purpose, no one does that. Why would people do that, right? So now it's the whole thing of that confrontation has happened, and yes, I definitely think about those things too myself, right? Am I just keeping the team down, right? He wouldn't have stayed up all night if that wasn't an insecurity, right? But he is taking things seriously in his own way. Or that's what Kakeru said.
That's what Kakeru said. So Prince asked if you took it back. Basically, if you took back what he said. And he's like, no, he doesn't. He's taking this seriously in his own way. And I think what's kind of interesting about this is you see that there are two other people watching here. King almost went into Big Brother mode and was like, I'm about to choke a bitch. You're just a little first year. Remember, know your place. Know your place. Right. Yeah, exactly. But Nico kind of gives him a little bit of a, hey, you finally said what's really on your mind. That's good. Like, it's important that you do that. But Kakeru has been the person of, he's a bit haunted. Kakeru is the one that's kind of trapped in his own past here. So when he's thinking and stewing on things and stuff like that, but doesn't feel like he can talk about it, that shows he's not really comfortable being vulnerable with this family here. So Nico-chan is applauding him on his vulnerability, which is like the one good thing you could say about what he said to Prince.
Right, because better to have Kakeru say it in the heat of the moment, right, than to continue to stifle it down, and then when it does come out in the heat of the moment, it's even worse.
Right.
You know,
Let it all out, dude. We're family here. So Nico-chan basically takes the, I would say, the empathetic big brother thing here and goes, I'm not blaming you. Which, let's be real here. Like, there's probably a lot of people that are like, "Oh, he's
I'm blaming him." You know?
Yeah.
Right.
But the fact that he's saying this here is like, "Hey, you need to acknowledge this, buddy. I don't blame you." Like you might think that we all do.
I
and
still
thus that
consider you
drives
to be one of the team.
Exactly. And
Because we are a team.
right. And then like I love how much this kind of supporting role that Nico-chan basically like took here diffused any awkward tension surrounding the idea that Kakeru didn't take back what he said. Because this is something that's important for Prince to make a decision on. And this is where I think that maybe we can get a little bit too much into the power of friendship kind of thing of just everything is possible because it's the anime story that we're choosing to focus on. And yes, in a meta way, Prince has to make this work somehow.
Right, whether it's through, him actually making the time or not making the time and then dealing with that somehow.
Yeah, in whatever way that is, that's the reason why this story is being focused on, yes.
Yep.
But in the moment, Prince is currently, in my opinion, just basically he's up against a really tall wall. He's having a Hanata moment where he's basically has the big wall in front of him and he wants to see the view from the top. But he doesn't necessarily know if he can ever see the view from the top or if he's doing necessarily enough to see the view from the top.
Yeah, that's the tough thing. Weird little tangent story, but when I was a little kid, and my dad and I were at this pool. And he wanted to see if I could. He wanted to basically teach me how to push off from the wall underwater, and so he basically said he would give me like $5 or something if I could push myself in one push, no kicking or anything, one breath from one end of the pool to the other on this fairly narrow spot. Nothing too crazy, right? And every time I did it, I couldn't do it. I would get really, really close, and then I would come up for air, and it was like right there in front of me, but if I'd only held out a little bit longer, I would have been able to do it.
Yep.
I put goggles on so I could actually see under the water, because I would never keep my eyes open underwater. I hated it. I hated the chlorine and everything. It was just, it was awful.
Yeah.
So I actually did it with goggles. Every single time I did it with goggles, I could do it. Because I could see it getting closer, right?
Yep.
So I knew exactly that it's like, no, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer. Okay, there we go. Now I come up, right?
Yep.
And
exactly.
But without goggles, I could not do it, right? Even though I knew, like going from goggles to not goggles and everything, it's like, no, I know I'm there. It's just I'm just about to touch the other side.
But imagine if it was a thing of where it's like, you need to hold that for a minute and then you'll be able to do it.
Right.
The difficulty and how much you're willing to commit to the pain and the process of struggling and growing with that gets infinitely more difficult.
Yep.
The farther ahead of you the finish line
and
is.
For something huge like the Ekiden, having Prince actually really give everything, I would not be surprised if he wasn't actually giving his everything, because he doesn't even necessarily know what his everything is.
Nope, he shouldn't. It's very rare that people know what their actual physical limitations are, because most of our lives, at the very least in a modern world and stuff like that, we don't need really to test that too often.
And even when we think we've met them, have we really? Right? And so Prince getting the treadmill, for instance, and practicing with that and
that's
being
huge.
Like, that's huge.
That's
right?
huge.
And even if it's something where it's like, okay, is that really going to help directly that much? No. The fact that he's now starting to try and suss it out himself. What are my limitations here? Can I meet them? Right? That's it's important.
It's really, really important there.
So
I am very excited for Prince to, over the course of the story, come into his own to where he is driving this, like beyond and even some of the levels of what some of the other characters are, because I want him to have his like shonen protagonist moment. because he's the manga reader, right?
Right.
So he's looking at this like, if I believe in myself, if enough people say "gambate" around me and all that,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
maybe I can do it. But
Whatever you decide for yourself, that's the truth of your universe, Prince.
Yeah, exactly. And here, he saw the guy who was basically saying, maybe you should quit, cheering on everyone else, despite it being a thing of where he's like, this guy, whoa. Wait, am I willing to actually cheer them on in the same way?
Go. You can do it. You can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that it was Kakeru that did it first, though.
I love that it was Kakeru that did it first, and that Prince was almost watching to see if he would do it.
To see if he would,
right? Because, like, so.
Oh my God.
The dynamic that we had so far between Kakeru and Prince was sort of one that, like, it needed to get to a point like it got last episode, where Kakeru spoke what he thought, right? But I always saw the dynamic as being one that was more inherently negative. Now I actually get the feeling that their dynamic could be one of my favorites in a positive sense because of, like, think about it, they're total opposites in physical capabilities, in personality and temperament.
They actually have some personality similarities.
Oh yeah.
They are awkward as hell. They are little bumbling,
that is
bumbling,
true.
Like
that
awkward
is true.
boys.
Yes.
And they each are actually fiercely dedicated to specific things
That's true.
They can't really communicate perfectly to others. So I don't know. I think in some ways they all have that underlying current because they're in this house.
When they were going home from the track meet, right? And Prince said what he said. I can't remember what it was.
I'll bring it up. Yeah.
But then he basically walks ahead. You know. I full on expected for it to show Prince actually starting to run, because when they said, "Hey, let's all run home," I was like, "Yeah, awesome." I almost expected it to be something where Prince then actually, like, was the one to start running.
Yeah, it was when he was saying, "Hey," he was calling everyone's name, and
I
it's
was
like,
just barely
"Hey,
speaking. You were shouting, yeah,
yeah." But he was shouting,
yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, that's not fair." He's like, "I was so embarrassed to be standing next to him." Because it was like, oh, I'm being a little bit inspired by this guy.
Translation.
Baka.
Baka. Like, and what I love about this is that this is something. Now the baka is my interpretation, of course, right?
Yeah.
But that is not at all something that that Kakeru would ever pick up on, of that kind of, like,
right,
sass, of course, sort of like communication.
Hence,
right?
He actually starts to chase after him with like this, "Hey, like, let's talk about it."
Right, but
it's showing that he cares, man. He cares.
But yeah, Prince basically just saying in his own secret language, so that, like, almost for himself. To make sure that he's saying it.
Yep.
Like, yeah. Okay.
And I love that this scene here is framed with Haiji in the background looking on knowingly, just like, all according to Cake. But then also Nico-chan here then doing kind of the invasive older brother thing here, where he, like, grabs his head, scruffs him up a little bit, and he's like, hey, he's a good guy at heart too.
Yep.
And, he's like, hey, what let me go, whatever,
Stop it.
But all the time we see Kakeru's face throughout all these kind of interactions and stuff, where running isn't a portion of the things there, and it's about the relationships and the connection and stuff, the boy looks like he's about to break down and cry at any moment. Like, at any moment. This stuff is something he needs.
Yeah,
he's, like, going through this and just
really
like,
does.
Like, you guys, you don't have to, like, make this big. It makes me want to cry, because it's just like,
why do you have to bring it up?
Oh, it's so like, this is a reason why he's in some ways the underdog, outsider of the family and stuff.
This is why he's the main character.
And why he's the main character. And and then, of course, just the whole thing of support being a huge theme of the episode here. Nico-chan basically kind of taking the interim Haiji role right there in his own style of being like, yeah, you did good, buddy. Yeah. I don't blame you. I'm here for you. I got you. And this is also coming after in the episode where Haiji did the equivalent kind of thing for him of, I got you. So now it's spreading. This is the leadership area of effect aura that Haiji has when you when you do your long rest in the house of the Chico
Right,
Seiso.
right. He's the bard. He's the bard through and through.
You all wake up with a specific inspiration die that you got from...
that extra Song of Rest dive hit points. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. But then he closes things off. This is a huge step forward. We've got our own way of doing things. Have faith. We'll have plenty more chances. And then they decide, they're going to run home. Mm-hmm. And the smile from Kakeru. Yeah.
But then Haiji collapses, so... Yeah.
But they do have, before this happens, a little bit of an understanding regarding just, that Kakeru, I get what you're saying that we can do. I understand it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, saying from a logical and, just emotional perspective, I get what you're trying to say here.
Yeah.
I still don't think we have the
chance,
the capacity. We don't have the stats.
Right. This is the emotional problem has been resolved.
Mm-hmm. Now the logical.
But now let's go logical and practical. Mm-hmm. We can't do this, man. Like,
yeah, it's too much. And then of course,
at that moment,
Haiji
collapses.
Well.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
Yeah, we stream every day or every weekday. Mm-hmm. So information in the description.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.